Pooja, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I'm just asking a query. Is this webinar?
So we are already live. So I'll just introduce everyone. A very good afternoon. And we are just here with our final panel discussion on our Hospital Infrastructure Summit Day 2. The panel discussion, the topic is designing an innovative patient-centric healthcare infrastructure. And we have with us a very good lineup of panel members. Professor Stupan Sharvatikari, Health Information Educationist, being the moderator of the session, along with Mr. Samit Manchandana, who is the Chief Healthcare Architect of the Manchandana Associates, Mr. Ram Prasad Akkisetti, who is the Founder Managing Director, CCBA Designs Private Limited, Architects and Urban Planners, Dr. Sandeep Charhat, who is the Regional CEO and Group Medical Director, Metro Group of Hospitals. And finally, we have Mr. Abdullah Salim, Group CIO of Omni Hospitals. Dr. Shupin, I leave the virtual dais to you for conducting and moderating the session.
Thank you, Pooja, and good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome. So this panel discussion, I think, is going to be a very interesting one. And Pooja has already introduced the speakers. So without much ado, I think we'll start with the opening remarks from each of the panelists, and then we'll expand on the thoughts, and then we'll give some concluding remarks. And if we get some time, maybe we can answer some of the queries from the audience as well. So we'll start with our first speaker today, Mr. Shamit Manchanda. Over to you.
Discussion directly. Am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. You can just introduce yourself and then give your opening remarks. We'll come back to the main presentation up in the second round.
Okay. So, good afternoon, friends. My name is Shamit Manchanda. I am an architect heading the firm Manchanda Associates. We specialize in healthcare design. Way back in 1998 was our first project. It was a 150-bedded maternity and child block at Sanjay Gandhi Hospital, Delhi. And thereafter, we went on to do various hospital projects, which included a 500-bedded teaching hospital at Tejpur, Assam. We did a 500-bedded upgradation of Nizam Institute of Medical Sciences at Hyderabad. More recently, we've done the 200-bedded Medanta Ganganagar Hospital. About to start is another 50-bed hospital, Apollo Spectra at Greater Noida. At present, we're doing a 120-bedded orthopedic ward unit at the Srinagar Bone and Joint Hospital. This is a World Bank monitored project. Very interesting because we're trying to make this an earthquake-proof building. Most buildings are earthquake resistant, but this is going towards making it earthquake-proof. And we should be starting a 300-bedded hospital in very soon. So basically, that's the background I come from. Thank you.
So welcome once again, and I welcome the next speaker, Mr. Ram Prasad Akkisetti. So if you can just introduce yourself and give your opening thoughts.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ram Prasad Akkisetti. I am the Managing Director of Christopher Charles Benninger Architects, based out of Pune. We are a small, medium-sized, you can say a medium-sized firm of about 50 architects working in our firm. I'm going to show like about 4 or 5 slides about our own office. This is our office in Pune. We are situated in the western part of Pune called Balewadi, where we have our own office premises. There we are also a kind of a cultural center with an art gallery, and many activities are carried as part of the program of our architectural firm. So we're just not an architectural firm, but we also dwell in other parts of art and architecture. This like you could see like a gallery, because we believe in like architecture is very closely related to the development of culture around, and then so we conduct art activities and film shows and book releases and such things. Next slide. This is our strong team of architects, mostly youngsters. So we don't only specialize in architecture of hospitals or healthcare. We do a lot of institutions, high-rise towers, hospitals, also educational institutions, as well as many government. And currently, we are doing like the 23 metro stations in Pune for Line 3. So our forte has been to basically bring like a deep-seated philosophy of good architecture, because we believe in good design leads to good business. Next slide, please. This is our studio. We run as more like a studio. We call ourselves a studio and not a business house or an office, because many of our projects are research generated. Most of our projects are trying to achieve like the goal of like addressing if design can change the spaces and the working of the working of that particular business. And we are located, we have projects located all over South Asia. We have been in Bhutan and Sri Lanka also. We're currently doing a very large pharmacy headquarters in Shanghai, China over the last 3 years. Next slide, please. We have been, most of our projects have got many awards across the country as well as in the world, and we have most of our projects have been published everywhere. We are quite a bit in news and in magazines. There's a lot of follow up. Our firm's work is followed by more than 2 lakh people on Facebook. So that's how our firm is. Now stop this one. This will do the next. Yeah, that's about it. So we are small, like a boutique firm, you can say. Thank you.
So welcome once again. So I move on to the next speaker. Dr. Sandeep, please introduce yourself and let us hear your opening thoughts.
Hi, I am Dr. Sandeep Chatrat. I am the Regional CEO and Group Medical Director of Metro Group of Hospitals. Since last 3 decades, I am into running and managing operations P&L for hospitals. Prior to this, I was the Central Regional CEO for Apollo Enterprises, and I was managing 10 hospitals of Apollo. Prior to that, I have worked as a CEO for Dharamshila Cancer Institute, and I have rich experience of working with Fortis Healthcare as well as Wokhard Hospitals as their medical superintendent in earlier part of my career, as well as with Sir Gangaram Hospital as a head of medical services. And I'm fortunate to have bagged 3 awards for the best CEO in the country for last 3 years. And my core strengths are operations, P&L, quality systems, and cost saving in the hospital. And I think that the patient-centric design is a very important part, where the sanitation, environmental theory, and evidence-based design, it helps the operation a great deal, and it has to be designed early on during the conceptualization stage, and it helps in increasing the efficiency as well as effectiveness of working of the hospital. But key thing is that it happens during the design stage. So designing is very important part for enhancing and for increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of working of the hospital.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sandeep, and
Yeah,
welcome once
over.
again. Yeah. So now I invite Mr. Abdullah Salim to introduce yourself and make your opening remarks, please. I think we have lost Mr. Salim, it seems.
The voice is not coming.
I think we have lost Mr. Abdullah Salim. There seems to be some connectivity issue. So maybe we can move on with the next part. We'll come back to his introduction once he is back. So I'll come back to Mr. Manchanda. Now you can
Yes,
make your elaborate presentation. So if you can
I
start.
have a
Over to you,
few
Mr.
slides.
Manchanda. Yeah, sure. You can
I have
share
a
the
few
screen.
slides to show. I'll just start sharing my screen. Give me a moment. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it has started sharing. It's just coming.
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah, now we can see.
Yeah, is it? So, looking forward to a very interesting discussion today on designing an innovative patient-centric healthcare infrastructure. I'll just have about 8 or 10 slides, which I'll go through. Patient till the recent past had become more of an object on the scene than the focus of design. The focus of healthcare design was more on clinical outcomes, and patient was there, but he was just a person on the scene. It was not the center of attention, or even any emphasis was being given to him. But over the last few years, sensitivity to people's feeling and their needs has entered the vocabulary of facility planning. And basically, the object is to create an atmosphere of safety, security, cleanliness, and physical comfort, just as Dr. Sandeep Chatrat just mentioned. These points are very important in any hospital. A good hospital design becomes a crucial element for the patient's health, comfort, and well being. It can reduce patients' anxiety, accelerate recovery, and promote a sense of well being. And one of the greatest risks a patient has during a hospital stay is hospital acquired infections, medical errors, and falls. Any good hospital design can reduce these risks. As taking the words from Dr. Sandeep Chatrat, evidence based design, we have evidence based medicine. And as you can see these days from COVID research, every day new evidence comes and newer protocols are there for treating COVID. Similarly, we learn from our projects, past projects, and experiences, and put them to use the knowledge that we gain from them to newer projects. So, some of the topics that I'm going to talk about are visual relief, good acoustic and sound control, patient safety, healing gardens, and good signage. In terms of visual relief, one general feeling is that hospitals are very drab interiors, sterile. So, using colors can make the environment more cheerful. We need to have our hospitals to be sterile, but they don't need to be very stark and sterile. So, we need to cheer the environment, cheer up the environment so that it becomes a more lively place to be in. Sterility is important, cleanliness is important, but doesn't have to be drab. Another aspect of visual relief is that all areas in a hospital should be naturally lit. This is a very important part of any project. And most studies have shown that patients with access to natural light have a much faster recovery. Admitted patients can heal better as the circadian rhythm remains in sync. Patient is aware of what is day and night. Many a times you have ICUs where the patient even doesn't even come to know when it was day or night, or his circadian rhythm gets broken. So that is very important. And connect with nature. So a large, good views help relieve stress. The story goes that this the actor Amitabh Bachchan, when he was admitted to Breach Candy after an accident that happened, I think it was in the movie Coolie or something like that. He asked his bed to be moved next to the window. And it is said that some of the good poems that he penned were during that period when he was recuperating in the hospital bed, looking out to the sea from Breach Candy Hospital. So, relieving stress of a patient is very important. Good acoustics and sound control helps reduce noise levels in the hospital and thus eventually reduce stress. Reduced noise level ensures a good sleep, which is very important for a recovering patient. Reduced noise levels not only help patients but also bring down the stress in healthcare for the healthcare workers who are there, the caregivers, the doctors, the nurses. Now imagine being in an ICU with alarms beeping all the time. So you need to have a good acoustic control and sound control. Patient safety is very important. Making a patient feel secure is an important factor in the healing environment. Provision of grab bars in toilets, handrails in corridors are some examples. And patient safety is not only concerning the patient, but in ensuring that there are minimal medical errors. And there should be enough adequate lighting in rooms and nursing stations where it is required. Creating a healing architecture. A hospital needs to be one of the most wonderful places in the world. It needs to heal people. So you need to have soothing areas, a good garden where people can step out, patients can step out, and during the recuperation, they need to be in the hospital, but they don't need to be confined to the rooms itself. And the hospital must have an architectural environment that can positively contribute to the healing process. Signage is a very important thing. A good signage system is critical for any hospital. Hospitals being large buildings with varied functions spread all over the place, it is important that the patient and their attendants can easily find their way around and rather than being lost all the time to go, where to go and how to reach there. Another concept that is developing in the West and now in India, I believe in India also are healthcare hotels where people are there for long-term mission. And these are places for convalescence and supervised care, basically a hybrid between a hotel, a spa, and a hospital. And basically bringing together comfort and healing. If the primary caregivers, that is the doctors, nurses, and the other attendants in the hospital, if they are not relaxed, the patient will not get the proper care. So doctors and nurses and other paramedical staff are the backbone for the healthcare facility. Their comfort and better working environments are equally crucial. Reduce travel distances, how you design, how you plan the building, how so that the nurse doesn't have to I believe travel too much. I believe an average nurse travels something like about 8 to 10 kilometers every day during her work schedule. So how can we reduce that? So how do we place the nursing stations so that her distance of travel gets reduced? Better lighting at nurse stations, as I mentioned earlier, so that she reads the prescriptions right and there are no medical errors. Better acoustics and proper and sufficient duty rooms for the doctors and the nurses to rest during their off work hours. And in the end, I'd like to say designing an efficient and effective and soothing environment, healthcare facility plays an important role in a patient's treatment and recovery. Thank you.
Thank you for the elaborate presentation. Over to you, Mr. Akisetti, for your presentation now. You can share the screen so that everyone can see the presentation. I think you're muted. First, you have to unmute and then share the screen. Please unmute yourself. I think.
I said I'm trying to adjust my timer so that I don't overstep on the time that is given, 12 minutes. but it looks
No
like,
problem. No problem.
but it looks like Mr. Manchanda was kind enough for me to give a little bit of extra of his time.
We can see your screen now. Go ahead, please.
Yes, yes. Good afternoon. I think it's such a wonderful topic, especially in the times of Corona, that we are all like struggling to find beds and oxygen and whatnot. It's from the news that we hear from across the country. I think it's very apt that we came out with this particular topic to discuss, which is very important, how we design good buildings. But before I actually go into the theory of what should be considered as a good design, I would like to share with you 4 different hospitals that we are involved with. Some of them have finished, some are in the process of designing, and some are just about beginning. This is LifeScare Multi-Speciality Hospital. It's in a rural area, somewhere near Latur. I don't even know if you all are aware of Latur. It was famous for the earthquake back about 22 decades back. So about 10 acres of land was something uh, which was like, I don't know. Sorry about this. How do I do this? So anyway, so the thing is that Udgir is near Latur in the middle of Maharashtra. It's a rural hospital. It's about a 300 bedded brand new greenfield hospital in a rural setup. There's nothing. This is the largest building about like 200 kilometers in that region. So this probably could be one of the only hospitals which is a multi-specialty tertiary hospital in that region. And the next nearest could be Hyderabad, or maybe like Pune, or maybe Bijapur, which has a medical college. Now, apparently there is such a big need of special hospitals or specialty hospitals in rural areas of India, because most of our population flocks to the cities. In fact, if you really realize, the corona cases in Pune were higher than in Mumbai or in Delhi at one point, not because all of them were from Pune. Most of them came from the interiors of Maharashtra to Pune. So that's one of the things which we have to address, and this is how we have addressed by building a whole new hospital over there. And when we did build this hospital about like 8-9 years back, most people said it will not work, it's too expensive, this and that, and but we still went ahead. One of the things that I want to bring to your notice is that villagers do not come to hospitals unless they are just about to die. So one of the things we tweaked over here, when it comes to the ratio of beds to the ICU beds, we have practically created almost for every ICU bed there were maybe just 3 normal beds. So in these times of corona and in the pandemic, this hospital was of great help to the region, and people did not have to flock to bigger cities like Nagpur or Hyderabad or Pune from this particular region. So this is a rural hospital, mind you, and I would like to show the next one. Keep going. So keep going. So this is the hospital. Hold on, and we have created a lot of courtyards and gardens, parking places, because a lot of people come. About tens and a dozen people would come with a patient in a tempo tracks or such things in rural areas. They never come with one person. Never comes with one patient. A whole family and the extended family members also come. So we realized that you need a lot of space, and that's why we created a lot of gardens and a lot of courtyards that can accommodate these support family members. And that's very important in India. When we design, hospitals are not just for patients and nurses and medical professionals. At least 80% of the population of any given hospital would have people who have nothing to do with the treatment as such. They are just coming because their loved ones are in the hospital. Next one, please. Now, this is KEM Hospital, King Edward Memorial Hospital. This is a very large multi-specialty tertiary hospital in the middle of Pune in Rastapet, where you can't even park a single scooter, much less a four-wheeler over there. It's an old area, completely dilapidated. There's nothing one can do. Plus, this hospital has grown into a large hospital in the same land parcel over the last 1 century. So over 100 years, people kept on adding this facility, that facility, this department, and all those things. Today, the thing is that, like, I think, they have just like a kind of a highly chaotic hospital. That's when Dr. Koyaji invited our firm to look into. One could even call this as like the cancer of the hospitals. This was for us like the most difficult challenge. You can't stop the hospital functioning. At the same time, you have to build new facilities. One of the challenges was like, how do you park cars? There were no places to park any cars. And that was also the reason this hospital was losing quite a lot of patients as well as doctors who wanted to visit, because for them to park and walk, it would be nothing less than half a kilometer, which is something which most of us are not ready to do in growing cities like Pune. So we actually created a parking tower first. So, and like probably this will be the only hospital where there is a parking tower like the airports that we see around in Delhi and Mumbai. And then once we created a parking tower, then we liberated the area that was held for parking on the ground level. That's where we started putting a whole new brand new hospital. So now one of the challenges of this hospital also, almost 40% of the beds are to be required to be given to poor people who are dependent on hospitals, but they cannot afford to pay. So that led to a huge number of like patients who are non-paying patients, because they got an extra FSI which they consumed on the promise that the PMC can direct their patients who cannot afford to be in this hospital. So we built a whole new brand new specialty wing over here, where the patients can pay good amount of money, and that would subsidize the wings that do not have like high paying patients over there. So in a way, it's a kind of a balancing act. So KEM Hospital is going through a huge amount of renovation, refurbishing, as well as retrofitting. So it's, imagine a hospital has to run, we can't stop it, but we are taking parcel by parcel, demolishing it, building a whole new building over there. So it's seriously like something, a model which probably we will be able to provide to most of the hospitals in the urban centers of India. And that is one of the reasons why most of the hospitals are not getting modernized, because it is lack of space. The buildings have like outlived their age, and we need like new modern facilities, building new modern buildings, but they do not know how to go about it. So for us, it was a challenge, and we did kind of find a solution for that. Now, this is a third hospital I'm trying to show you. This is not a hospital, but this is a kind of a healthcare facility uh, for differently abled children, more specifically children, like somebody who has brain problems, somebody who has mental, problems that are associated with their growth, as well as at the time of birth. So brain problems. So now when the doctor came to us, he very clearly said that, like, I want you to design a hospital which is not a box. Now that is something which is a challenge for us, because he said, like, you see, like these mentally challenged children, or let's say differently abled children, have to navigate and negotiate the normal life outside in the normal environment, like in our cities and in our streets and like housing societies everywhere. So it's not going to be like that easy. There are not going to be ramps over there. There are going to be staircases. The streets are all like chaotic, visual barriers and obstacles. So we created a hospital that kind of addresses the way these children need to address the outside environment in real life. And this is a beautiful hospital, and it has won many awards in architecture. And apparently many important doctors from South America and North America come and do their research also over here. You could see there is no way you can make out this is a hospital which is like a typical square or rectangle kind of building. It is a very organic hospital. The walls go up and down, and basically to kind of train the children to kind of understand like the real life outside their normal life, which is very abnormal for them. So it's how it is. I mean, it's a very nice space actually for children. Next one, please. Now, this is the last project which I'm trying to show, like why, how and why urban planning or master planning is so important when we design hospital. Now, you know, the David Sassoon family, which donated money to build this Sassoon General Hospital. By far, probably this will be the largest, I would say, government hospital in Pune. Definitely in Pune. I don't know if it's in Maharashtra, but it's a very large hospital, very old hospital attached to one of the oldest medical colleges in Pune, BJ Medical College. So the land has been like encroached upon. The land has been like occupied by squatters, slum developers. Now this is like a common, typical problem all of us face through. So you can see a land that is left is these 7 parcels, large and small. You can even see the ground is somewhere and the BJ Medical College is somewhere, the Sassoon General Hospital is somewhere, and then the staff quarters, boys hostel, everything is scattered around with something else encroached in the middle, with roads crisscrossing aimlessly. All this is because there was never a master plan. So then I want to draw your attention how important it is to do a master plan, how important it is to like think about future 100 200 years. Even today, I mean, like, I'm sorry to say, most modern hospitals do not prepare for the future. They just want to address, not even today, they want to address what was yesterday. I mean, that's how our design is like, treated. Most hospitals don't even hire architects to begin with to design. Like they will take doctors to design their hospitals. It's seriously like, it's like they're taking the role of an architect to do their work. And that's why most hospitals are like chaotic in every respect. It's like if I'm an architect, I shouldn't be self-administering medicine. So in the same way, my healthcare professionals shouldn't be designing. They should take help of architects and designers to design the buildings. Now, anyway, now the thing is that like all these parcels have like, occupied in with no movement corridors. There's no no sense of growth. We can't even put new buildings. The bylaws will not allow, but they have substantial FSI. So we were asked by the government of Maharashtra, and this is our pro bono project. Actually, we donated this work to the government of Maharashtra last year because they wanted to kind of see how we can kind of intervene and improve on the existing land area. Show me the existing building slide. Now, this is how it is occupied. So we connected different parcels through underground passages and movement corridors. We segregated the pedestrians from like the vehicular movements. We segregated patient movements from services and like doctor movements. We created a lot of parking nodes. We created many new facilities, and we did go high rise. Like, let me see. Now we had to demolish all kind of unnecessary buildings which are not part of the heritage. That's another big problem. Like, at Sassoon Hospital, we had to address the heritage committee. Now the heritage committee doesn't even know which are the heritage buildings, and out of all the about all the 34 buildings, only 2 buildings were heritage buildings, and the rest were all PWD like interventions that came about in the last 20, 30, 40 years, which needed to go because they have outlived their structural systems also. Most of those buildings couldn't have lived more than 50 to 60 years. So we came up with all these new buildings, which are essentially high-rise towers, thereby reducing the footprint of the building to not more than 33% of the land. Earlier, we were having the problem that the footprint of the buildings were occupying almost 50 to 60% of the land area that were. So not allowing new facilities to be built. Next one. So this is how we kind of intervened, and now we have gathered a lot more space in Sassoon Hospital. They have got funding from the state government to build like a new blocks, and there will be phase-wise demolition, and there will be, put my screen now, there will be phase-wise demolition and phase-wise construction. Now I gave an idea of like 4 different models. to understand how, as architects, we come in. Now, apart from this, a lot of points that like Mr. Manchanda has already addressed, I will also like to stress upon, because internally, I think it's important to understand what do we mean by patient-centric hospitals, and how does design assist in achieving this goal. The patient definitely must feel comfortable and relaxed when he is in the hospital. It's important to create workplaces that are also salubrious for people who are working. It's not just the patient. There are doctors, there are nurses, there are healthcare workers, there are all sort of support staff who need to come on a daily basis. What will motivate them to come to the hospital on a daily basis if it's not beautifully designed? So we must recognize when we design spaces, they should address not just the patients, but everyone who's coming over there. There should be a sense of positive healing over there. Now, in architecture, we have a very famous quote called form follows function, which was, of course, proposed by early to late 20th century American architect called Louis Sullivan, who was also the guru of Franklin Wright. Most of us in architecture understands the purpose of the building proposed should and like should be addressed first. So that's why we call it like the form follows function. Function must be addressed, function must be understood, and around which we create the forms. How do we make hospitals appropriate? We have to discuss with doctors, nurses, caregivers, and also patients down to the parking lot managers and assistants. Understanding the sequence of events and the services that go into making a hospital over several iterations, several sessions, and design charrettes will always lead us to a better solution when we design the hospitals. This need generates the block diagrams, what we call the initial block diagrams, and these diagrams are connected by which services and the areas that go with them. So it's important that we stick on to the philosophy of form follows function and not be driven by aesthetics and shapes that are generated by inspirations. Let's call this as the first point of interaction, what I call the bubble diagrams, or the diagrams generated from discussions, as the first point of design. This interaction is very, very vital. We love to come out with new themes calling patient-centric, green architecture. No, they should be like the underlining themes on which we should build up, but they should not be driving. Like throughout the history, hospitals have been built around the need of the time that they were built and around the patient comfort. But it's also now the time has come that we should build hospitals for future. At least everybody should think about 100 years in vision. Let's not underestimate modern medicine that has progressed a lot more, and hospitals have to adapt and readapt to the changing needs. It's like every time a new software is created, the hardware changes. Hence, our hospitals are changing too. No longer the same X-ray machines are employed in the hospitals. They are much sleeker. And so, like the technology changes, our rooms have to be adaptable. They have to accommodate new machinery, because medicine is also now technology. One of our focus areas of hospitals is also infections, inside infections versus outside infections. So it's the need of the hour also that like we create hospitals that are highly sanitized. How do we also make our hospitals sustainable to the environment? How do we make them green? How do we make our hospitals warm, friendly, and lovable? How do we make our hospitals as secure places where patients feel safe and secure? So, like if we have to go into all these issues, we have to take one after the other. But the primary points one should, when they are designing the hospitals, we should definitely look at some bold points. And to me, some of the bold points are entries. There should not be more than 3 entries: a lobby entry, or let's say the main entry. Then there is an emergency room entry. And then there is, of course, a staff and what I would call as a service entry. Then it becomes very easy for like people to manage the hospital. You require less manpower, less guarding. With cameras, you can practically manage in a way that you can also control the exit and going out of people, and thereby reduce the infections also. I think
I
Mr.
think
Manoj.
let's listen to the others also, because I think we are running short of time. Mr.
Okay.
Salim is back. So, Mr. Salim, can you please just introduce yourself and share your opening remarks, please?
Okay. Basically, sorry, I got disconnected in between due to network issue. I'm very sorry. My apology on that. But I heard all the panelists. And it's very rightly has been said by everybody. By the way, I work for the Omni Group of Hospital as a group CIO, and I look after the entire digitization in terms of the bringing the patient-centric treatment delivery to the within the individual reach. So that's a quite short introduction about me. And if you can allow me, then I can just put my point and a small presentation.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm able to see my screen now.
Yeah, we can see your screen. You can make it full screen and go ahead.
Yeah, I have made full screen here now. So, designing an innovative patient-centric healthcare infrastructure. So, if we talk about to deliver as a whole to the patient care to the patient care delivery to the patient, the beautiful infrastructure, the building, and based on the different guidelines, the building has been made. And if the hospital is not having the digital perspective, then the quality healthcare delivery definitely it is going to be impacted very badly, and nobody can claim that the patient-centric and patient care delivery has been delivered with the quality. So, having said that, top class, as per the JCI and NABH guidelines, the building has been made, and finally the technology has not been adopted from the day one. And of course, for the technology perspective, the architecture team also take care of that. How then where the IT department, information technology, are the data center, if they want to put a private data center. Obviously, even though we are going to put on the cloud, backup will be in our premises, so that will be taken care by the builders and the engineers of the real estate side. So I would like to add a bit of value that where the IT infrastructure is going to add apart from the other infrastructure we are talking about. So if you'll see that today, 1935, you can see where we are, and 2018, now you can check it out. We say that where we are in the 2018, and this is 2018. So huge move from 1935 to 2008. A lot of advancement, and the embedded system came into picture, and to make the advancement of the treatment. But it was in silos, not as a longitudinal record for the patient. So if you'll see the great advantage, again, if we're talking about, this is 1935, and in 2018, till 2018 and 2019, I'm talking about, we are still there. Just 2 to 3% has been improved in terms of technology. So the maximum hospitals are the same where we are there in 1935. Now they are still there in the maximum hospital in 2018 in terms of maintaining the digital records of patients. So the big disadvantages is that why the people are emphasizing to go digitization from day one onwards, are from the greenfield hospital, are in the existing hospital, why they're supposed to do a proper budgeting in terms of digitization, because of the medical errors. And if you'll see that in prescription 39%, transcriptions 25%, 12%, and if you'll see dispensing, it's 11% error, and administrating the medicines to the patient finally 38% errors. And due to this error, if we'll see that in US, though is a very developed country, so 98,000 hospital patients die every year in the US alone because of adverse event. Virtually every patient experiences a gap between the best evidence and the care they receive. So this is the recent, I mean, almost 10 years ago, this situation was there, but still this 98,000 has improved a bit of, but 50,000 people are still dying in today's days. So in US, if you'll see that 50 to 55% the complete end-to-end digitization has happened, and that is due to Obama care came in between. And if we'll talk about the Asia specific, if we talk about the European country, except NHS, the rest of the part of the country is still they are using these systems in silos, and they are not able to maintain the longitudinal records of the patients, which gives the better clinical decision support to the doctors, to the paramedical staff or clinical staff to take the right decisions to deliver the patient care. So my thing is that the IT is IT infrastructure perspective. The government or the private sector, they're supposed to be add value the IT infrastructure, because nowadays still in the private hospital or government hospital, there's tier 2 onwards hospital, there no budget for the IT infrastructure, and as a result that patient care quality, patient care and patient experience, provider experience, and the quality healthcare delivery impacted very badly, and knowingly, unknowingly, this data in India does not come out from the hospital. So if we'll see that, and the other part of this, is we have to be very, very careful about that. Though slowly this adoption of technology is taking a bit of speed due to the pandemic. So the cloud infrastructure is coming, but data security, we are storing the data on the cloud and third-party storage, but we should have some mechanism, hospital mechanism technology, that if they're taking those data, they're trying to share their data with third parties for the research perspective, it should not go, because the patient data security norms is very, very high and very, very important. And apart from that, enterprise solution stack, even though the enterprise solution stack means having the complete digital transformation platform the hospital has got, the technology is enabling better devices and means to communicate, collaborate, monitor, and deliver the care. That's also very important. And technology enabling the insight derived from the treasure troves of the data to improve the quality and experience of the care. A touch point being in interaction between the user means patient, and the other stakeholders. Other stakeholders means your doctors, nurses, and pharmacists, medical devices, manufacturers, researchers, and the payers and family are getting consolidated by the enterprise solution. Then on top of that, the CDSs will work better to deliver the quality healthcare at point of care. So my thing is that when the hospital is talking about the smart hospital, next generation hospital, they have to budget for the IT infrastructure as well, to ensure that from day onwards the enterprise solution has been put in place, which is catering to store each and every clinical information of patient, whether it is coming from the HIS or EMR, or is from the numberless embedded system like or equipments are working in lab, and your radiology department, and your ICUs. All those data are very, very important, which is getting consolidated and maintained as a longitudinal record in the system. And then the doctors are taking the right decisions to deploy the right clinical pathways to treat the patient. So that's where I would come. I comes, and that's where I would like to add the value of the technology perspective for the subject what we are talking about, like uh, uh, designing and innovating patient-centric health and infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I think you have definitely touched upon a very important and pertinent point. Now, this is the age of the connected health. So whether it's in the hospital or the home, in fact, we are going towards home care as well. So connected health, connectivity is absolutely essential. So over to Dr. Sandeep. Yeah, eager to hear your thoughts.
You see, I think the main important factor in the patient-centric design is that the form follows the functions. And when we are planning a hospital, the efficiency and effectiveness of providing the care is defined by our architecture and our planning consideration, so that when the natural working pattern is followed, the design helps in more efficiently and effectively discharging the function. So this is a very important concept when we are talking of patient-centric design. The second point I want to highlight is that nowadays we are finding that there are so many fires in the hospital. And I must emphasize at this point of time that the design considerations, if they are meticulously followed, like the corridor size 2.5 meters, bed to bed space has to be 2 meters. So these are very important key considerations when in time of emergency, when you have to evacuate a patient. The role is absolutely critical if we follow these considerations during the planning stage and implement a safe, secure, and patient friendly hospital. Way back, Florence Nightingale implemented, she was according to me, the first architect when she designed the Nightingale ward. And I think the clean sanitation, landscaping, availability of light, air, because she is the one lady with the lamp whose model still followed as Nightingale ward, and she has in many way given the first architectural overview about the hospital. I want to emphasize that the design part and the patient centricity of the design helps in preventing infections, and it helps in improving the sanitation level in the hospital. There is a whole environmental theory which talks about it, and how the availability of fresh air, light, the quiet environment, clean environment helps in preventing the infections and helps in making hospital a patient friendly hospital. Evidence-based design is a very important consideration where the proof of the evidence which we are implementing, the design will help in more effectively discharging the functions of the hospital. The design considerations are very important for the safe and secure healthcare delivery. And when we are talking of sanitation and infection control considerations, the entire building, the sanitation workflow, we know the zoning part in OT, how we made from the clean, semi-clean, and then sterile zones. So I think in OT is one area where the considerations of planning of hospital are of the highest level. Second thing I also want to emphasize is about the comfort part. You see, it's very important that the availability of design of grab bars and the doors of the toilet must open outside, not inside, because in case a patient is faints or develops some complication, if you open the door inside, you can hit the patient. So it's very important to understand at the planning consideration that the comfort of the patient, availability of grab bar, the safety of the patient, door must open outside, the size of the corridors, which has to be 2.4 meters, the bed to bed space has to be 2 meters. These are very key considerations when we are talking of providing safe and secure healthcare delivery. The building part, I think there are three main very important consideration. One is the access control, how we are controlling the entrance to the hospital and how we are ensuring the privacy of the patient. The second part is the safety regulations, and I think the safety regulations are very important. I talked about the fire safety, and they all have to be implemented according to the CBC norms during the design stage itself. Signages is a very important consideration, because when we are talking where the elevators are there, where staircases are there, where the path to the exit, nearest fire exit is there, the signages of the hospital play a very important role. The sanitation part of the hospital, we all understand that during this COVID time, we have implemented the screening counters, we have implemented COVID floors, COVID ICUs. So the sanitation part is of a very high importance. How we have planned the hand wash facilities, and how we have enabled implementation through the elbow usage of hand wash facilities, and how we patient-centric and staff movement must be planned in the sterility in critical care areas, and hospital-acquired infections can be significantly reduced by planning considerations at the early stage. Then comes the comfort part. The comfort part I have highlighted about the grab bars, about the corner guards, about the guard rails when we are talking, when about how when we walk on on in the corridors, then the patient needs to hold to the grab guard rails, and the corner guards are very important to prevent any injury. The patient independence and the this is very important, and I think the toilet is one thing which is most important part in planning consideration. The environmental theory says that the comfort from the nature is the highest, and we talked a little bit about the view from the window, and I think the view from the window is the one of the best cure for the hospital patient, and the comfort from the nature, and comfort comes from the design, and the comfort comes from the people. These are the three things. So when we see the nature from the window, we see greenery. We have observed that the average length of stay in the hospital goes down. Patient is able to recoup and recover faster, and also there is a element of enjoyment and comfort in the hospital, and the circadian rhythm of the body is not disturbed, and viewing nature from your window of the your hospital definitely helps in healing environment, and the comfort from the nature is definitely the natural light, the opportunity for if the patient wants to go out for some physical movement, that must be provided, and designs and spaces for the nature-centric restoration and rehabilitation and therapy is very, very important. Designated external spaces and view from the nature, and so comfort from the building environment, especially the privacy And the positive distraction, we talk about color coding and about the various considerations, which gives a positive distraction and definitely helps in improving in the recovery rates. Comfort from the interaction. Now the interaction part, definitely interaction, there should be space for the nurses to sit down near the wards, so that they are not very far away from the patient. And comfort from the patient, because patient family members should be able to stay inside the patient room, and that all happens at the design stage. And caregivers must have a centric design. And in the end, I think I want to highlight about the evidence-based design and the effect of built environment on the users. And it was Roger S. Urich who first implemented the view through the window design. And that theory definitely helps and holds good in today's time, where we are finding many places very congested hospitals, because length of stay is reduced, the dosage of pain medication is reduced, emotional status patient is better, and there is ease of sleep definitely when we view through the window. So definitely I think evidence-based design helps in enhanced patient safety, decreases patient need for meditation, and reduces medical errors, reduces staff injuries, and definitely increases staff efficiency through improved workflow. And that is very, very important. Color coding of various floors, especially children hospitals, we have observed that that helps in where you have art area, you have play area, and hospital must have a prayer area. I think that is very, very important consideration, considering we
I
have
think
patients
we
from
are almost through the
different
time.
areas.
So maybe if you can just
So,
make your concluding remark.
yeah, so the concluding remark is this, that the color themes for the hospitals definitely help in speedy recovery. And with these few words, I want to thank for the opportunity.
Thank you
And
very much.
over to you.
Mr. Manchanda, you would like to make your concluding remarks?
Uh, I would like to thank Dr. Sandeep Chatrat for highlighting and endorsing some of the points that I had raised. And coming from the medical fraternity, it is a very encouraging thing for us as architects to implement this. And Dr. Salim also pointed out the importance of IT infrastructure in the thing. Because all these things for people like me and Ram Prasad Akiseti is that we get inputs from all the stakeholders, because all of your inputs help us in designing better hospitals. And one statement that was repeated a couple of times in this thing was form follows function. Another twist to this whole thing with the COVID thing now, the latest is form follows infection, because infection control during COVID times has become the most important thing. Thank you.
No, I think it's really been a very useful. We have run totally out of time, so maybe I'll wind up here only. And thanks to all of you. In fact, all of you raised very pertinent points, and we would have loved to have heard more from you. But I think we are just over the time. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to all who are listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Professor Suptain. I am Karthik Sharma. I head the
Thank you.
healthcare and government vertical in Elets Technomedia. And it was great watching this session, and we really enjoyed it. It was the last session of the 2 day summit, but it was really interesting. It kept the audience there, and still a huge number of audiences watching this event. And right now when we are talking. So thank you so much for that. And it was a great discussion. I would like to thank all of you. And Professor Suptem Zarbadikari, we are watching you from years on discussing and talking on various topics. I'm also following you on social media. It's always great be watching you and watch your interactions. And similarly, Dr. Sandeep Chatrat, have been watching you a lot of times there as well. And it's great to have you here, Mr. Shamit Manchanda. It's important to have an architect's perspective, and it was really great. Mr. Abdullah Salim, sir, it's always great watching you. We have been inviting you to our events. And Mr. Ram Prasad, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your views and being here. We would like to give away the speaker certificates as a small token of appreciation and thanks from our side. And for a wonderful moderation from Mr. Supten Sabadekari, Health Information Educationist. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And Mr. Shamit Manchanda, Chief Healthcare Architect in Manchanda Associates. Thank you so much, Mr. Manchanda. Mr. Ram Prasad Akiseti, Founder, Managing Director of CCVA Designs Private Limited, Architects and Urban Planners. Thank you so much, Mr. Ram Prasad. Dr. Sandeep Chatrat, Regional CEO and Group Medical Director of Metro Group of Hospitals. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us. Last but not the least, Mr. Abdullah Salim, Group CIO of Omni Hospitals. Thank you so much. And here we close this two-day summit on hospital infrastructure. It was great to have a huge number of audience from the healthcare and architect fraternity watching this program. And for these two-day summit, wonderful sessions, around 8 to 9 sessions we had. We had leaders from the architect fraternity, the healthcare fraternity, and government sector. So it was great. Next event of eHealth and Elets Technomedia is on radiology and imaging, with our second annual radiology and imaging summit. We will be discussing on evolution of radiology, the future prospects, and another summit we have in July, which is on digital health conclave, second edition. It is on reimagining healthcare. So these both of these events are very much on even currently what is going on in the country. These two events are, I think, are quite important to have in this environment. So we request all the audience and all of you also. We'll be keep inviting you for the next events also. And audience, please keep watching us. Please stay connected. And here we sign off. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, speakers again. Thank you so much, partners, Orient Bells, Everest, NABH, AI Med, eHealth team, and Elets team for the great work to erect this event at this level. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thanks.